Welcome students to the last video in our Inflorescence series, and here we are looking at very important cases, 3 cases of special inflorescence, and we begin with Hypanthodium, a very important case which is usually asked in the examination because of the presence of some unique flowers in the inflorescence. So let's look at what are the key features of Hypanthodium. The first part is that the receptacle is flask shaped. We know that the receptacle is the part on which the floral organs develop in the flower. So the receptacle is flask shaped. So it's something like has an inner part. And this flask like development has a pore in the sense that there is a hole which has scales inside it. And going on to the interesting arrangement of flowers in this particular type of inflorescence, you have the male flowers towards the pore, that is on the upper portion, and the female flowers towards the base. So in the flask shape, that is the container like situation, that development, you have the male flowers at the top, that is towards the pore, towards the opening, and the female flowers towards the bottom. Now we'll be seeing a diagram of this particular inflorescence to get a better idea. And in between is a very interesting development. There is either the presence of sterile flowers, which means that the reproductive organs cannot be fertilized; neuter, which means that both the male and female reproductive parts are absent; or gall flowers. Basically, it's a short type of flowers which doesn't develop into fruit. So you have either the sterile, the neuter, or the gall flowers in between the male flowers on the upper portion and the female flowers on the lower portion. And this type of development is usually seen in the genus Ficus. It's in the family Moraceae. And you can see let's have a look at the characteristic diagram of Hypanthodium. You have the receptacle, which is something like a flask shape, which means that there's an inner part. And on the inner part, on the bottom portion, you have the quite substantially looking, quite very easily distinguishable female flowers. On the top you have the male flowers. In between you have the sessile, you have the sterile, neuter, or the gall flowers. And of course on the topmost portion you have an opening, that's the pore, where usually we see some scale-like structures. So this kind of development, this kind of inflorescence is seen in the Ficus family, and there are the most common example, the diagram here, which is referred to by the diagram here, is that of the fig plant, that is Ficus carica, and gir in the vernacular language. So these are the important parts of Hypanthodium. So once again, repeating the key important points, you have the pore at the top, in the middle part, on the upper section you have the male flowers, on the bottom well developed you have the female flowers. The whole structure is a flask-like receptacle. And in between you have the sterile, the neuter, or the gall flowers. Note that the gall flowers also play a very important role in the pollination process, even though they don't develop into fruit. So that's a very important point. The presence of gall flowers is a very notable point, especially in the examination point of view. So 2 other important examples, or notable examples in the Hypanthodium type of inflorescence is the peepal and the banyan. The peepal, the botanical name is Ficus religiosa, and banyan tree, that is Ficus bengalensis. So note these three important examples of, that is people, banyan, and the fig plant. So that's about Hypanthodium. And now going on to the second kind of special inflorescence which we are discussing in this particular video. It's called Verticillaster, and we'll be looking at how this term is coming up. It's because of the development of a particular type of word, which is in botanical language, it's called a verticil, and that's a key point. We'll be looking at that point shortly. So beginning to have a look at the key important features of Verticillaster inflorescence. Primarily two clusters, each having 3 to 9 flowers, developing on a node in the axils of opposite leaves. So note the point that there will be two clusters, each having 3 to 9 flowers, and that's the first important point. The second point is that each cluster will be having a dicacial cyme. So it's very interesting. We have in the inflorescence itself, we have a dicacial type of floral development occurring, and more than that, there is also branches with monocacial cyme. So this is a very important point, a point which a student shouldn't forget as far as the examination point of view is concerned. That is, Verticillaster, each cluster has a dicacial cyme. Further, it also has branches which has monocacial cyme. So note this point. The third important point is that all the flowers are arranging from a all the flowers are arising from a single point. So that's very important. The flowers, there's a common point. There's a common point from which the flowers develop. Now, going on to what I said earlier, why is this inflorescence called Verticillaster? There are two opposite clusters which seems like a owl, which seems like a ring-like development, and this owl-like cluster is termed verticil. So that's a key point. And it looks like that due to the overcrowding of the floral development, overcrowding of the inflorescence. So two opposite clusters, which seems like a owl or verticil, and that situation arises due to overcrowding, and it is this verticil which gives this inflorescence its name. So note that point. And no less important point is the presence of dicacial as well as monocacial cyme in this kind of inflorescence. So let's look at some notable examples in the case of Verticillaster. This kind of inflorescence is characteristically seen in the family Olympiads, and a very famous example is Ocimum sanctum, that is the common tulsi. And also we have an example in Salvia. And let's look at a diagram to get a finer, broader picture of what we are discussing in Verticillaster. You have the leaves coming out on the opposite sides of the stem, and the particular feature, that is the verticil, that is the overcrowding of the floral part. The overcrowding of the flowers is clearly indicated in the diagram. So once again, reiterating, Verticillaster, the points to note the development of the verticil and also the presence of dicacial as well as the monocacial type of inflorescence. So that's very important. Going on to the third kind of special inflorescence, which is called Cyathium. This kind of inflorescence is characteristically seen in the species Euphorbia, and a very notable, well-known case is Euphorbia pulcherrima, that is poinsettia. So not that point. And this is a kind of inflorescence which interestingly looks like a single flower. That's a very important and interesting point. That so all the inflorescence which we were discussing till now, we could easily distinguish between different flowers. It was like a lot of flowers on a particular area on a peduncle, but this case Cyathium, the whole inflorescence is actually looking like a single flower. So that is a very important, interesting and characteristic feature of the Cyathium inflorescence. So let's have a detailed look at this particular case. As I already mentioned, the whole inflorescence looks like a flower. The second notable point is that the receptacle is something like a small conical development. So that's very interesting. And this small conical development is surrounded by an envelope of around 5 green or colored bracts. So repeating, the whole inflorescence looks like a flower. The receptacle is like a small conical development. There's a small conical receptacle. And this conical receptacle is surrounded by an envelope of around 5 green or colored bracts. And now we come to in a manner, another very important point, that is the presence of the nectary glands which produce nectar. So the conical receptacle is surrounded by an envelope of around 5 green or colored bracts, and this region has nectary glands or glands which produce nectar. So note that point. And in a manner, another very important point is what is going to be discussed now. That's the next point. That is the fourth point. So in addition to the whole inflorescence looking like a flower, the second point of the envelope and the nectary glands, the third, in a manner, a defining feature of the Cyathium inflorescence is the presence of Achlamydeous flowers. What do you mean by an Achlamydeous flowers? No, not that these flowers are pedicellate, that means they have a stalk. Achlamydeous means that the flowers, there's no development of the corolla and the calyx. So that's a very important point. Corolla and the calyx is absent in this kind of flowers. So Cyathium is characterized by the presence of pedicellate, Achlamydeous and unisexual flowers. So note this point. It's too important to miss, especially when we look at the NEET examination. Achlamydeous flowers, that's very important. And of course, unisexual means it's not either male or female. You have both male and female flowers. Now let's have a look at the diagram to get a better understanding of what we are dealing with. So as I already stated, if you have a look at this inflorescence, it doesn't look like a bunch of flowers, but one may feel that we are looking at a single flower. That's a very interesting point. And on the middle of the inflorescence, there's a long development which actually is the female flower. So that's a very key point. And of course, you have a bract-like development where you find the nectary glands. That's the glands which produce the nectar. And we have the male flowers which are multiple, which is growing and developing around the single well distinguished female flower. So that are the key points. And this particular diagram, we are looking at a cut section of the Cyathium inflorescence. And once again, note the point of the Achlamydeous flowers. And of course, the famous example is Euphorbia pulcherrima. So the central female flower, which is coming out of the whole inflorescence region, standing out separate. It's characteristic of the whole thing and standing out separate. You have the cup-like involucre, and that's about the Cyathium inflorescence. And with the Cyathium inflorescence, we are ending the video series dealing exclusively with inflorescences. I fervently hope that your students have greatly benefited from this video series dealing with inflorescence. And thanks for watching.